Hey everyone, it's Ryan Ackles with CalTV Sports, here to recap a wild month of March Madness. Let's roll. This past month marked the first major college basketball action in March since 2019, when the Virginia Cavaliers cut down the nets in Minneapolis. But after a 62-58 UVA loss to the 13-seed Ohio Bobcats, it's official that we'd be getting a new champion in the 2021 edition of the Big Dance. This year started and ended with the Gonzaga Bulldogs, who entered the tournament as the #1 overall seed. Rolling through West Coast Conference play and powerhouses like Kansas, Iowa, and Virginia, the formerly 26-0 Bulldogs showed no letup to start the final chapter of their potentially perfect season. Wooden Award nominee and sharpshooter Corey Kispert led the scoring for the Zags with 23 points in their first-round rout over 16-seed Norfolk State. They look like a #1 overall seed should, calm, collected, and ready for a deep March Madness run. There are so many other storylines to focus on, most notably the play of the Pac-12, whose teams combined to finish with an NCAA best 9-1 conference record in tournament action through the first weekend of play. Two of these featured teams included the 6-seed USC Trojans and the 7-seed Oregon Ducks. USC handled Drake, not the rapper but the college, in their first round win. But it was their second round appearance against the blue blood Kansas that really raised eyebrows. Through the leadership of Isaiah and Evan Mobley, the Trojans picked apart Bill Self's defense like a Swiss Army knife. They dished the ball to Evan Mobley in the paint before kicking out to open shooters and crashed the offensive boards. After a quick Kansas run to put the momentum of the game in jeopardy, USC just as quickly regained control and never looked back. Their 61% three-point percentage and 16 rebound advantage overwhelmed the Jayhawks as they cruised to a shocking 85-51 victory, handing the Kansas Jayhawks their largest tournament defeat in program history. The Oregon Ducks also didn't want to be left without a date to the dance in the second weekend. Concerns surrounding the potential impacts of COVID-19 heading into the tournament suddenly became a reality as the Ducks' first-round opponent, VCU, had to bow out of March Madness with virus-related issues. VCU was forced to accept the trip home, while Oregon squared up with Big Ten powerhouse Iowa Hawkeyes, personified by the heart and spirit of DC native Luka Garza. Garza put up 21 points in the first half of this game, pounding the inside as he usually does with the ease of a pro baller taking on high school bench warmers. However, his stellar individual effort in the first half to try to keep the Ducks at bay was spoiled by a 20-10 rampage by the mean green and yellow. Powered by the energy of Eugene Omoruyi and LJ Figueroa, the Ducks took an 80-62 lead with just under 10 minutes to go in the game. With high-flying dunks and momentum-shifting shots from beyond the arc, the upstart Ducks were just too much for the heavily favored Hawkeyes. A team that surely didn't want to go out like Iowa was the UCLA Bruins, who stormed into the round of 64 after a play-in game against another blue blood in Michigan State. With a chance to extend their stay into the second weekend in Indy, the Bruins took on the Abilene Christian Wildcats in a rare 11-14 matchup. Johnny Juzang once again led the scoring for the Bruins as they trounced the Wildcats to dance into the second weekend. Okay, that was a lot. So now, in completely opposite fashion, it's time for this next segment, 2 rounds in under 2 minutes, to take you up to speed on how we got from the Sweet 16 to the Final Four in college basketball. Baylor cruised past the previously victorious Villanova, and Oral Roberts' miracle run ended on a heartbreaker to 3-seed Arkansas with a miss at the buzzer, and the #1 seeds Gonzaga and Michigan coasted by lesser opponents in blowout wins. UCLA shocked the #2 seed Alabama Crimson Tide in their second overtime victory of the tourney, and crosstown rival USC joined the Elite Eight as 2021 became the first year where these two LA-based programs advanced this deep in March. Oregon State's magical run ended with a crushing defeat by the Houston Cougars, and the high-powered Baylor squad from Waco would put the Baylor Bears and the Houston Cougars in the history books as the first two Texas teams to appear in the same Final Four. On the other side of the bracket, Gonzaga continued their run to perfection at 30-0 with an 85-66 victory over an empty-handed USC squad. And looking not to end up like their LA counterparts, Johnny Juzang and the UCLA Bruins avoided a last-second barrage of threes from the number 1 seed Michigan Wolverines to get to their 19th Final Four in program history. While Baylor and Houston arrived at Lucas Oil Stadium as equally competitive opponents with just 5 losses combined, they sure didn't end up that way by the end of the night in Indianapolis, Indiana. In fact, this game was really over before it even started. After a 45-20 lead at the half, the Bears lifted their foot off the gas pedal and still managed to throttle Houston 78-59 for their first national championship appearance since 1948. There's just no proper way to introduce the second semifinal between the 11 seed UCLA Bruins and the 1 seed Gonzaga Bulldogs. It had it all, from furious fast breaks and momentum building threes to unbelievable defensive sequences and jaw-dropping runs. UCLA entered the Final Four contest against the undefeated Bulldogs as massive double-digit underdogs. But as was the case against Bama and Michigan, they surely didn't look this way from the jump. The Bruins came out of the blocks unfazed by the brilliant cutting play on offense from the Zags. They continued with their methodical pace of play and timely mid-range shooting to take a 34-28 lead on a Johnny Juzang jumper with 4:55 to go in the first half of the game. The Zags rattled back, using 16 first-half points from Joel Ayayi and a 3 from freshman phenom Jalen Suggs to take a slight 45-44 edge into the first half. But anyone who thought Gonzaga would pull away in the second half and put UCLA in their place as an 11 seed, well, they were quickly proven wrong. The Bruins rebutted each Gonzaga make with makes of their own, from the usual crew in Jaime Jaquez Jr., Cody Riley, and role player David Singleton. A Drew Timme layup with 11:25 in the game topped a Gonzaga run that extended their lead to 7. It looked like UCLA would have to make one final run to keep themselves in the game in regulation, and they sure did. After 4 straight points from point guard Tiger Campbell, the Bruins hung tough with the Zags and hit 2 clutch free throws courtesy of Jaquez Jr. to go to the third overtime period of this tournament alone. After an opening 6-2 run by the Zags, a Cody Riley bucket cut the lead to just 2 with over 2 minutes to go. Gonzaga guard Andrew Nembhard and Jaquez Jr. of UCLA traded 3-point buckets, and just like that, the ball was in UCLA's hands, down by 2 with just under 20 seconds to go. With the ball in star Johnny Juzang's hands, he dribbled the ball to the middle of the lane for a 2-handed floater. Missing the shot, he quickly collected his own board and hit the right-handed layup to knot the score at 90 with all of just 3 seconds left in the game. What happened next helped cement this game as not only one of the best basketball games of this Final Four or tournament, but also an all-time Final Four in tournament history. After receiving the inbound pass, Jalen Suggs took 3 graceful dribbles down the floor and launched a buzzer beater from just ahead of the half-court line to give the Zags a 93-90 victory over the stunned UCLA Bruins, producing a script that, frankly, not even Hollywood could generate. As if this national semifinal wasn't already incredible enough, Gonzaga and Baylor stormed into the title as 2 teams that jockeyed for the top standing in college basketball all throughout the year. Suggs, Kispert, Timme, and the Zags were looking to become one of the greatest college basketball teams to ever live. The hungry Baylor Bears, led by top scorer Jared Butler and the defensive prowess of Davion Mitchell, were looking to put a blemish on the Bulldogs' perfect season. The stakes were through the roof in this box office matchup, and the game did not quite live up to the hype. In fact, it was over in just about 5 minutes. With a Mark Vital layup at the 6:28 mark, the Baylor Bears gathered a 35-16 lead, and in the minds of many, the game was already out of reach. The Zags were, however, able to cut the deficit to just 10 points, with the Bears up 47-37 at the half. But the fierce run that we were expecting from the number 1 overall seed just never came. 4 Bears got into double figures in a balanced offensive attack that simply outmatched whatever the Bulldogs had to give after their thriller against the UCLA Bruins. And while the national championship didn't quite meet expectations, with a different Bears team winning it all in the end, this tournament certainly did. Once again, this is Ryan Ackles with CalTV Sports.